My name is Alice Morose, and I was born in the smallest, quietest, most heat-soaked town along Bayou Teche, St. Armand, Louisiana. I am 32 years old, a lifelong resident, and tonight is the first time I have ever been willing to say out loud that something is wrong here. Not in the vague way outsiders joke about the swamp or the dark or the humidity clinging to your bones. I mean something real. Something I can't explain without sounding unwell. And I need to tell it in full because everything I describe happened only hours ago, inside one unbroken night that hasn't ended yet. Not really, not for me. The air still feels the same. The silence still rings the same way. And the memory sits right at the surface, too fresh to distance myself from. The truth is simple. Every night at exactly 2 a.m., something stands outside my house and weeps. I've lived with this for months. But tonight was the first time I tried to understand it. The first time I stepped outside. The night began like any other. The heat had refused to break even after the sun sank, turning the air thick with that swamp heaviness you learn to breathe like a second language. Cicadas were going at it out in the trees, a constant thrumming backdrop that never stops unless something disturbs them. I had been sitting by the kitchen window, nursing a mug of chicory coffee at a stupid hour because I couldn't sleep, scrolling with the same restless thumb anyone gets when they're too tired for real thought but too wired to rest. My phone clock read 12:41 a.m. Not close enough to matter, not far enough for me to pretend the night would pass quietly. I didn't start hearing the weeping until late August. Thick summer. Unkind summer. Nights where the stars float like ash and the humidity turns every porch light halo into a smudge. The first time, I'd thought it was a drunk neighbor or some teenager wandering home after a fight. St. Armand isn't dangerous. Not like cities. But we get our human messes like any place. Still, the sound had been wrong from the start. Not wailing. Not crying. Just weeping. Soft, rhythmic. Like a person grieving something ancient, something worn, something they never expected to lose. It always happened at 2 a.m. Tonight, at 1:56, the cicadas cut out. Not tapered, not dwindled. Cut out, like a switch flipped. The sudden quiet made the back of my neck tighten. You don't get silence in St. Armand unless there's weather coming or something moving through the dark that the animals recognize before you do. I set my mug down too fast, sloshing coffee over the rim, and walked to the window without really thinking. I don't know why I looked out. I already knew what I wouldn't see. At 1:59, my porch light flickered. Just once, a tiny dip like the bulb inhaled sharply and then steadied again. I pressed my palm against the cool glass, staring at the empty yard. Oak shadows. Gravel drive. The slouching fence. Nothing unusual. Nothing out of place. Then the clock on my stove blinked to 2 a.m. And the weeping began. I can't describe it with words that do it justice. It doesn't sound human, but it almost does. It has the cadence of a person trying their best not to break, held breath, trembling exhale, that tight little gasp a throat makes when it's swallowed too much grief. But it's thin. So thin. Like the sound is stretched and strained, like whoever is crying is far away and standing close at the same time. Tonight the weeping seemed to come from just beyond the front steps, hovering where the grass meets the porch. My chest tightened. I felt it deep, like the sound reached into my ribs and coaxed everything tender to the surface. For months I'd pretended to ignore it, sitting in bed with my hands over my ears, waiting for 2:06 a.m. when it always stopped. But tonight something in me moved. Some thread of dread twisted into something sharper, something like resolve. I wanted to know. I needed to know. I grabbed my flashlight, slipped on my boots, and stepped to the door. When I cracked it open, the weeping cut off instantly. Not faded. Stopped. The sudden absence of sound hit harder than the weeping itself. Like stepping into a vacuum. I stood perfectly still, one hand on the doorknob, the other gripping the flashlight so tightly my fingers tingled. The cicadas did not resume. The night held its breath with me. I eased the door open further, the hinges giving a slow, sticky complaint. The porch boards creaked under my boots. The air outside felt colder than it should have, not cool, not refreshing. Just cold, like the temperature had dropped only within a few feet of my doorstep. The yard was empty. Of course it was. It always was. But the quiet was too absolute, too pressed, and like the darkness was wrapped around the house instead of resting in the yard where it belonged. I stepped onto the gravel, scanning the beam of my flashlight across the grass, the trees, the ditch by the road. Nothing. Not even insects shivering in the light. I started walking toward the fence, telling myself this was ridiculous, that I was chasing an echo or a hallucination born from lack of sleep. Then the weeping returned. But this time it did not come from the yard. It came from behind me, right where I had been standing seconds before. I froze, not even breathing, not even blinking. The weeping was stronger now, clearer, as if whoever, or whatever, had waited for me to leave the porch and then stepped into the exact spot I had just vacated. The sound quivered through the night, not growing louder but feeling nearer, nearer than I'd ever heard it before. My heartbeat hammered so hard it felt like it shook my vision. I turned around slowly, raising the flashlight, and the beam flickered over an empty porch. But the weeping didn't stop. It was standing there. I couldn't see it, but it was standing there, right where the porch boards groaned, right where the air had gone cold, right where I had been seconds before. And it was waiting for me. I should have run right then. I know that. Any sane person would have. But fear does something strange to the mind when it builds slow over months instead of striking fast. You get used to it in the way someone gets used to a creaking house or a sleepless night. It becomes part of the atmosphere. That familiarity becomes a trap. The terror feels personal. Like if you just understand it, maybe you can fix it, or maybe it will finally stop. That's the only excuse I have for why I whispered, "Who's there?" into the darkness like an idiot. The weeping stopped immediately. The hush that followed felt thick and deliberate, as if the night itself leaned in to listen. My flashlight beam shivered across the porch rail. The boards didn't move, but something in the air shifted, subtly, like a held breath turning into anticipation. When the reply came, I thought at first it was just the wind pushing through the oaks, a soft exhale rising and falling. But the breeze never carried words before. This did. A quiet syllable, swallowed and trembling. Please. Just that one word. But hearing it broke something in me in a way the weeping never had. I'd braced myself for inhuman. For something from the swamp. Something I could label as impossible. But the voice wasn't monstrous. It wasn't gnarled or distorted or snarled. It sounded like a person standing right in front of me. A person in pain. I raised the flashlight higher, sweeping its weak yellow arc across the boards. "Where are you?" I said, afraid of hearing an answer but terrified not to. The porch remained empty, but the air pulsed with a presence I could feel more than see. A faint pressure, like standing too close to someone in a narrow hallway. "Don't leave," the voice whispered. The sound came from the same spot, but the tone shifted under it, still soft, still fragile, but thick with something new. A pull. A plea wearing the shape of desperation. A part of me stepped forward before the rest of me caught up. "Why are you crying?" I asked, my voice unsteady. The weeping started again. Not loud. Not explosive. Just shaking. Quaking. Each breath a tiny collapse. I felt it vibrating through the boards, humming up through the soles of my boots. My body reacted before my mind did. I took a single step backward, hitting gravel again. The relief was immediate. The pressure in the air thinned, like a spiderweb snapping. The weeping choked, then sharpened, rising abruptly into short, clipped sobs. Not like grief anymore, more like frustration. I realized too late that stepping back had upset it. "What do you want?" I asked, breath shaking now. A long stretch of silence answered. The kind that makes your skin crawl because you swear you can hear something thinking on the other end of it. Then the voice came again, so faint I leaned in, against every instinct screaming in my ribs. "Let me in." Everything inside me froze. That wasn't a plea. Not this time. There was a different weight beneath the words, an intention I didn't like at all. Something about the phrasing, about how quickly it followed my step backward, made it feel conversational, as if the thing had jumped straight to the next line in a script it had used before. I tightened my grip on the flashlight. "I can't do that," I said, barely more than a whisper. The night reacted instantly. The cicadas didn't return, but the air thickened again, denser, colder, like humidity collapsing into frost. My breath came out in a faint puff, pale and wrong for August. The temperature was dropping fast enough that the porch boards creaked like they were shrinking beneath the strain. The weeping resumed, but not the quiet, trembling kind. This was harsher, breathless, almost angry. A raw, scraped sound like someone sobbing so hard their throat tore. "Please, don't leave me outside," the voice cried, the words tumbling over each other, dissolving into broken syllables. I stumbled backward another step, and the cold drew with me for a moment, tugging at the air around my shoulders before snapping back to the porch like an elastic band. It wasn't following me. It was bound to the threshold. That realization hit so suddenly I said it out loud. "You can't leave the porch." The weeping stopped mid-sound, strangled into silence. I had the horrible sensation that it was now watching me. A soft thud vibrated through the porch boards, light, like a barefoot step. Then another. Slow, careful, close. The weeping didn't return, but the breathing did, raspy and wet, in and out, a sound too textured to be purely human. It moved closer to the front door. I wanted to bolt. My legs wanted to run all the way down the drive until the dark swallowed me whole. But I also knew turning my back on it felt like the exact wrong thing to do. The kind of mistake people make in stories right before they vanish without a trace. So I held my ground on the gravel. "Who are you?" I asked, more forcefully than I felt. Silence. Forgotten. That one word wasn't whispered the way the others had been. It came out steady, final, like a name. The air shuddered with it, vibrating gently against my chest like something old brushing past me. I swallowed, dread pooling low in my stomach. The voice didn't sound like a child, didn't sound like an adult, didn't sound like anything I could clearly picture. But the sorrow in that single word had weight, as if it carried years. Decades. "What happened to you?" I said. The boards creaked. One slow step. Another. The breathing hitched. A whisper, close enough that it felt like warm breath against my ear despite the cold. "You left me." My body went cold, even colder than the air around the porch. That wasn't possible. I'd never left anyone outside. I'd never lost anyone. I never. A sudden, sharp crack cut through the air. Not from the porch. From the side of the house. Something else was moving. Something separate. Something walking. And the thing on the porch fell silent as if listening too. The sound at the side of the house wasn't loud, but it carried a wrong kind of weight. Too crisp, too intentional, like someone stepping on a branch they wanted me to hear. Not an animal scurrying, not the shuffle of leaves. Footstep. Slow. Careful. Testing its distance. The thing on the porch didn't breathe. Didn't shift. Didn't weep. It just halted, going still in a way that made the silence feel pointed. Like it was no longer focused on me, but on whatever had just approached. My flashlight trembled in my hand as I turned the beam toward the corner of the house. The yellow light shook over the peeling siding, over the tall grass leaning in the breeze last night, over the narrow strip of shadow beneath the window. Nothing moved. Nothing stirred. Then another soft crack sounded through the dark. This one farther back. As if something had taken a full step toward the backyard. I glanced back at the porch, still empty, but the cold had condensed so sharply that a faint sheen of frost clung to the edges of the boards. The air in front of the doorway shimmered slightly, as if chilled breath had condensed into something barely visible. My voice came out tight. "What is that?" The response was faint, fainter than any whisper before. Not mine. For a moment I didn't understand. Then it clicked in a slow, horrible slide. Whatever had been weeping at my porch wasn't the thing walking around my house. I swallowed hard. My throat felt scraped raw. "Is it dangerous?" A long silence stretched out before the whisper came. "Yes." The word didn't sound afraid. It sounded sure. And that certainty hit me harder than anything else so far. I backed further into the yard, the gravel crunching loud under my boots. Too loud. Loud enough that whatever circled the house would hear where I stood. A moment later, I regretted the movement, because from the far side of the house came a new sound, so soft it made my muscles lock. Breathing. Not the wet, trembling breath of the thing on my porch. This was low, steady, animalistic in pace but not in timbre. A slow inhale, a slower exhale, the rhythm of something large deciding whether to hunt. The creature on the porch remained perfectly silent. I aimed my flashlight toward the backyard, though the beam couldn't reach that far. The world beyond the house was a sheet of darkness pressing against the outline of the trees. The breathing came again, closer. Not rushing at me, just moving, patient. My pulse jumped unevenly. "Why is it here?" The whisper answered from the porch. "It follows sound." "What kind of sound?" "Yours." The breath I'd been holding escaped in a sharp exhale I immediately wished I could pull back into my lungs. The breathing behind the house stopped. Completely. Like it had just heard me. Then, in the darkness beyond the corner, something shifted its weight. A soft scrape against the siding. That was all it took for adrenaline to thunder through me so fast my fingertips went numb. I forced myself to whisper, "What do I do?" The reply came immediately, too fast, too intent. "Come closer." I shook my head without meaning to. "No. Come to the porch." The voice softened. "I can keep you safe." Everything in my body screamed that was a lie. It didn't breathe like something alive. It didn't speak like something who understood fear. It didn't mourn like something who wanted safety. Its voice carried that hollow stretch of grief that didn't feel attached to a person. The thing behind the house took another step. Gravel shifted. Not loudly, deliberately, like it wanted to see what I would do. My legs started moving before I had time to think, stepping sideways instead of forward, putting a little more distance between me and the house. The flashlight beam stuttered as my hand shook harder. The porch voice seemed to sense my decision. It whispered sharply, "Don't go near it." A trembling inhale followed. "It remembers you." My stomach turned. The words had weight, memory, recognition. As if this thing walking the perimeter wasn't wandering, it was tracking. And the porch voice knew it. "How can it remember me?" I whispered. The pause. "Not long enough for comfort. Because you woke it." The backyard breathing deepened suddenly, rising from the shadows like an answer. A long, guttural inhale that vibrated the boards of the house. I spun the flashlight toward the corner, but the light skittered off leaves and bark and empty air. The thing moved again, angling toward the side door. It was circling the house. Not randomly. Targeted. I needed to move. I needed to get inside. But the porch was blocked by whatever invisible weight lingered there. And the side door was impossible. The thing was already moving toward it. Running into the yard seemed like the worst idea I could have. The whisper returned, strained now. It comes when I cry. Its next breath rattled. I didn't mean to call it. The wind, if it was wind, shifted suddenly, carrying the scent of stagnant water, mulch, and something sulfurous from the backyard. A smell that belonged nowhere near my house. My breathing stuttered. I looked at the porch again. Frost had spread across the boards, delicate crystalline patterns radiating outward from the invisible presence. The cold deepened, pressing into my chest. My lungs ached inhaling it. I forced myself to speak quietly, quickly. "Why does it follow your crying?" A whisper like torn cloth answered. "Because it's older than grief." Behind the house, something pressed against the siding hard enough to make it groan. My body jerked like I'd been shocked. Whatever that thing was, it was big. Not bear big. Not hog big. Something else. Something that took slow breaths like it had lungs the size of barrels. I heard another step. Closer. Almost at the back corner now. The porch voice whispered, fragile again. "Ellis." It was the first time it had said my name. I hadn't given it. I hadn't spoken it aloud. My skin crawled. "How do you know my name?" A soft, trembling sound. "You left me outside before." "No," I whispered. "That's not true." But something else answered from the side of the house. Not a whisper. Not a breath. Just a single, slow drag of claws along the siding, long enough that I felt it through the ground. And both things fell silent at the same time, waiting for what I would do next. The siding vibrated faintly from that dragging sound, and I swear the entire house seemed to inhale with it. I stepped back until my heel hit a strip of mud near the ditch, and the flashlight beam jittered up the slanted eaves. My breath came out too fast, too loud. The thing behind the house responded instantly. Its breathing shifted, honing in. I clamped my mouth shut. The night went tight again. No cicadas. No frogs. No whisper from the porch. Even the humidity felt suspended, like the whole atmosphere braced itself. I kept the flashlight angled low, sweeping the ground instead of the walls. If something rounded the corner, I didn't want to see its shape first. I wanted to see its shadow. That felt, somehow, safer. Another soft crunch sounded from behind the house. Closer. Closer than before. I couldn't see it yet, but the pattern of its steps convinced me of something. It wasn't wandering in confusion or sniffing around for food. It was circling with intent. Measuring. Approaching in slow, deliberate arcs, like a predator that had all night to get it right. "Ellis." The porch voice finally whispered, thin as mist. "Don't move." I obeyed. Even my heartbeat tried to quiet itself. The cold from the porch swelled outward, reaching me. A thin veil of icy air crawled along my arms, lifting hairs as it passed. The temperature dropped fast enough that the beam of my flashlight caught tiny flecks of frost drifting off the porch boards. The thing behind the house exhaled, long, heavy, wet. My blood iced. The porch voice trembled. "It's too close." I took the tiniest breath, barely a sip of air. What does it want? Warmth. I stared at the frost forming along the edge of the porch and felt dread sink deep. Then why come to my house? It's freezing right where you are. A ragged whisper answered. "Because it can't touch me." Whatever stood on my porch, the other creature avoided it. Not feared it, avoided it the way animals avoid poison or fire. The breathing behind the house grew louder again. My flashlight shook as I pointed it at the corner. Shadows shifted. Grass bent. A shape, low or maybe crouched, hovered just beyond the reach of the beam. I couldn't see features. Only motion. Then something stepped into the light. Not all the way, only the edge of it. Only a sliver. A silhouette that didn't match anything I recognized. A joint bent wrong. A limb too long. That's all I needed to see before I lowered the flashlight quickly, almost dropping it. The porch voice whispered sharply, "Don't shine at it. It learns." My mouth went dry. What does that mean? A soft breath answered, not the porch whisper. This was the creature around the house. Its breathing had shifted again, as if mimicking my rhythm. Slower now. Softer. Practiced. A horrible sense spread through me that it wasn't just tracking me, it was studying me. The porch voice trembled. "Get closer." I shook my head. "You want me near you?" "Yes. You'll be safer." "That's not true," I whispered. "You only want me at the threshold." A small, almost childish sound escaped the invisible presence on the porch, half sob, half gasp. "I'm cold. I'm alone. Please." It could fool someone who didn't know. But the bitterness under the words wasn't sorrow. It was need disguised as grief. The thing behind the house scraped its claws across the siding again, this time shorter, like it was testing for weak points. The entire structure seemed to flinch. I stepped to the right, just one pace, instinctively pushing distance from it. The porch voice inhaled sharply, as if offended. "I'm the one calling you." "But you said you didn't mean to call it," I whispered. The pause. "But I didn't mean for it to hear." Another scrape. Closer. Too close. My decision happened in a flash. I darted several steps back across the yard, boots slipping in wet grass. The flashlight bobbed wildly as I moved. Invisible branches snapped underfoot. The breathing behind the house surged, following the noise with horrible speed. The porch voice hissed, "Stop. It's faster when you run." My foot hit gravel again as I stumbled onto the driveway. I swung the flashlight toward the backyard out of pure instinct. The beam caught movement, something tall unfolding itself from the shadow of the house, rising slowly, rising too high for any animal native to Louisiana. I didn't see a face. I didn't want to. The shape alone sent a cold shock through me that had nothing to do with fear. It had been crouched. Now it wasn't. The porch voice let out a quiet, shaking sound. Not weeping. Something closer to dread. "Ellis, come back." I wasn't stepping toward that porch. I wasn't stepping toward that cold. I wasn't stepping toward a voice that knew my name when I had never spoken it. I backed along the driveway instead, moving toward the road. My house sat alone on a dead-end stretch 2 miles outside St. Armand. The road was narrow, cracked, thick with creeping kudzu. But it led away from both creatures. I just had to get far enough to... Something shifted in front of me. My flashlight snapped up just in time to catch the briefest flicker of movement near the ditch. A silhouette lowering itself out of sight. Not the tall thing from the backyard. Something smaller. Rougher. Lurking. My breath caught. The porch voice whispered, almost reverent, "It's not alone tonight." I had no idea there were more. 2 was bad enough. 3, if that's what I'd just seen, was unthinkable. My voice barely scraped out. "Why are they here?" A whisper floated across the porch, trembling like a held sob. "Because you heard me." I faced the house again. "What are you?" The cold on the porch deepened. The boards iced white. "Something you left waiting." "No," I said, heart hammering. "I've never known you. That's why I'm forgotten." Behind the house, the large creature exhaled, shaking loose dust from the siding. In the ditch, something scraped along the mud. And on the porch, the air rippled with cold so intense it made the edges of my vision blur. The whisper grew sharper, clearer, touched with a hunger I couldn't ignore anymore. "Ellis, you can't leave again." Everything in me froze. And all 3 places, the porch, the backyard, the ditch, answered in their own separate ways. A sob. A breath. A step. all of them moving toward me now. For a heartbeat, all I heard was the three sounds, one sob, one breath, one step, each coming from a different part of the property. All moving toward me. My instincts clashed in my chest like two fists slamming together. The urge to run and the urge to freeze. Running meant noise. Freezing meant being surrounded. I forced myself to move sideways instead, sliding along the gravel until I reached the far edge of the driveway where the ditch curved outward. The kudzu hung thick over the slope there, drooping in heavy, sticky strands. I didn't want to step into it. God knew what could hide in there. But I needed distance. The ditch creature shifted again, just barely. A wet slither of motion. Not like an alligator sliding through water. Not like a possum or a feral dog. This thing didn't move with any natural rhythm. It hesitated, then mimicked my last step exactly. Same timing, same gravel crunch, like it was learning me the way a child repeats a phrase. The tall shape behind the house shifted too, dragging its weight along the siding. The wood groaned in protest. I could almost imagine its head turning slowly, tracking my new location. The sound scraped down my spine. If I had been inside, I'd have mistaken it for the house settling. But out here, under the naked dark, I felt every note of intention in it. Only the porch thing stayed still. The cold lingered around the doorway like a blown-out candle caught in reverse, air curling inward instead of dispersing. A frost line crept across the boards, widening with each trembling second. I whispered, "Why are there more of you?" The porch voice answered softly, without its earlier grief. "They didn't come for me." "Then why are they here?" "For you." My jaw tightened so hard it clicked. "I don't know them." "You do." The whisper deepened. "They came the first time you stepped outside." "I've stepped outside every night for years." "Not at 2 o'clock." My breath caught in my throat. The first time. Back in August. When the weeping had started. I had stepped outside once. Just once, half asleep, thinking someone needed help. I'd walked to the end of the driveway and seen nothing, heard nothing. I'd brushed it off as a dream until the weeping returned the next night at the same exact time. "What happened that night?" I whispered. "You saw me," the porch voice said. "You didn't realize it. But you did." I shook my head slowly. My flashlight beam wavered across the edge of the yard. The tall creature behind the house stepped fully into view now. Not into the light, but into the outline of moonless shadow. Enough that I could see its height. Too tall to be crouching. Too tall to be standing straight. Bent in a way that made no anatomical sense, its limbs folding wrong at some hinge point. I turned the flashlight away quickly. My voice cracked. "Why is it here?" The porch voice answered gently, "It doesn't want me to have you." That wasn't a sentence meant for comforting. That was something else. Possessive. Thin. Wrapped in longing disguised as sorrow. The creature in the ditch clicked its teeth softly. At least I thought it was teeth. A sharp, wet sound, like two pieces of shell tapping together. Then it crawled a few inches forward, close enough that the mud shifted, pulling at itself like something crawling with too many limbs. My stomach knotted. I lowered my voice even more. "What are you trying to do to me?" The porch voice exhaled in a trembling sigh. "You left me outside once. You won't again." "That's not true," I whispered fiercely. "I never left anyone." "You did," it said. "And then you forgot." Its voice trembled in something that wasn't sadness anymore. Hunger. "I waited for you." The tall creature behind the house took a long, heavy step into the yard, moving with the weight of something that had no bones or too many. Its breath hit the air like steam against winter glass. Hot, visible, wrong for a night like this. The ditch creature skittered sideways, drifting toward the driveway like a shadow dragging itself by its elbows. The porch voice murmured, "Come inside, Ellis." A chill ran through me so sharply my legs felt hollow. "You're not inviting me in for protection." "No," it said. "I'm asking you to come home." That word, home, hit me like a physical blow. The tone behind it wasn't sentimental. It was an old, aching craving, the kind of want that had crawled inside its voice and hollowed it out. I stepped backward into the road, gravel grinding under my boots. The sound carried across the dark, echoing too loud. Instantly the tall creature turned toward me. Not quickly. Slowly. Deliberately. Like it had all the time in the world. Its head, if it was a head, tilted at an angle no human neck could endure. Its breath rasped through the dark in a sound that felt damp, fleshy, something that had lived too long underwater. My throat tightened until I felt lightheaded. The ditch thing crept closer too, slithering along the ground until its silhouette met the edge of my flashlight beam. I didn't lift the beam higher. I didn't want detail. I didn't want shape. The outline alone was enough. An amorphous form, like something wrapped in wet burlap, dragging itself with uneven jerks. All three of them were converging. All three moving toward me now. "Ellis," the porch voice whispered, suddenly calm. Too calm. "Don't run." Its voice dropped lower. Softer. Almost fond. "You never run from home." My pulse hammered in my ears. My lungs couldn't catch enough air. My body knew something my brain didn't fully understand yet, something that pressed into the moment like a hand closing around my spine, whispering one truth. I wasn't dealing with three creatures. I was dealing with one memory. One I didn't recall. One that remembered me. And one that was trying to pull me back where it believed I belonged. The tall creature stepped closer. The ditch creature dragged forward. And the porch voice whispered, sharp as frost, "It's time to come back." The road beneath my boots felt painfully empty. No neighbors, no passing cars, no porch lights down the bend. Just me, three shapes closing in, and a night that seemed to fold tighter around the property like it didn't want witnesses. I backed farther into the center of the road, the cracked asphalt radiating faint warmth compared to the cold pouring off my porch. For a moment, I had the ridiculous thought that the town itself had shrunk away, leaving me abandoned in some half-finished version of St. Armand. Behind me, the ditch thing clicked its teeth again. Fast, nervous, impatient. Ahead of me, the tall creature's outline swayed, separating from the shadow of my house like wet canvas being peeled from a frame. And from the porch, the soft, hungry whisper rose. "You've been gone so long." My jaw locked until my molars ached. "I don't know you," I whispered. "I don't know any of you." The tall shape shifted its weight. Something wet dripped from somewhere high on its body, pattering onto the dirt with a faint hiss, like liquid hitting dry wood. The smell that rolled off it, rot, stagnant mud, something metallic, hit me hard enough that my stomach lurched. The porch voice inhaled sharply. "You do. You just don't remember. You forgot what you promised." Every word made my skin crawl. "Promised what?" A quiet sob answered. "To let me in." A thin wind drifted down the road, strange, given the air had been still all night, and it carried with it a faint murmur. Not from the creatures. From the trees beyond the bend. A sound like distant humming. For a split second, I wondered if it was a car, if someone else was awake, if anyone could see this. The porch thing reacted immediately. Its whisper sharpened. "Don't call them." "I'm not calling anyone," I said. "You thought about it." Its voice trembled with anger, thin as cracked glass. "They can't have you." A sound tore from the backyard, the tall creature scraping its claws across the siding, impatient. The noise vibrated through the walls like the boards were ribs. I turned slowly, flashlight aimed at the ground. I didn't dare shine it at the creature fully, but I had to know how close it was. The beam brushed over the grass. and caught two impressions in the dirt. Footprints. Not deep, not heavy, but human. They led from the corner of the house toward the porch steps. My breath stuttered. Those weren't there before. The porch voice whispered gently, "They were. You just wouldn't see them." My chest tightened. Bare footprints shouldn't hold shape in dirt this dry. Especially not in this heat. And they were small. Too small to belong to the tall thing. Too small to belong to a grown man. My throat constricted. "Whose prints are those?" The whisper answered, a trembling exhale that brushed the edge of my hearing. "Mine." A tear of cold shot down my spine. The small footprints stopped directly at the porch threshold, right where the cold shimmered, right where the invisible presence stood. "Come back, Ellis," it breathed. "We can be warm together again." "I don't," my voice cracked. "I don't remember you. That's why it hurts." Behind me, the ditch creature twitched violently, its body jerking like a puppet yanked on strings. The clicking teeth rose to a rattle. It sensed movement. It smelled fear. It wanted in on whatever was happening. And the tall creature began to move faster. Its steps were still deliberate, but no longer cautious. Now it had direction. Purpose. Its breath came heavy, excited. The porch voice whispered sharply, "They're trying to take you from me." "No one's taking me," I hissed. "You're wrong." The pause. The air tightened. "You're leaving me again." That word, again, hit me harder than any threat. I didn't know these things. I had no memory of them. No lost child, no missing sibling, no tragic accident hidden in my past. I'd never found a stray animal that died on my porch. I'd never rescued something from the swamp. There was no story here. No logic. So why did these things think I belonged to them? My hands shook so hard the flashlight beam jittered across the road. The porch voice whispered, soft but sharp, "You left me outside to die." The tall creature's breath hitched in a low, excited growl. The ditch creature clicked faster. "I didn't," I said. "I don't know you." A long, broken inhale came from the porch. "You forgot me." "That's worse." Something shifted beside the house. A new sound. A scrape I hadn't heard before. Not the tall creature. Not the ditch thing. Something lighter. My skin prickled. The porch voice fell silent. Every creature froze. Even the night held its breath. A small tap echoed from the side of the house. Delicate. Like a fingernail tapping wood. Twice. Then a tiny whisper drifted around the wall, so soft it sounded like a child leaning close, sharing a secret through splinters. "Ellis." My blood ran ice cold. This voice wasn't the porch voice. This voice was higher, younger, impossible to place but heartbreakingly, unmistakably human. The porch voice started trembling violently, its cold expanding in a burst that crystallized the boards with a sound like brittle glass spreading. "No. No, no, no. Stay away from him." The ditch creature pulled itself backward, retreating several inches into the mud as if terrified of the new voice. The tall creature issued a low, almost defensive rumble. The tapping came again. Then the small voice whispered, "You left me too." I stumbled back into the center of the road. Two memories. Two voices. Two things I had supposedly abandoned. But I had no memory of either. "Who are you?" I shouted, every inch of me shaking. The tall creature growled. The ditch creature clicked. The porch voice begged, "Ellis, don't listen." But the small voice interrupted with a soft, trembling sound. "We've been waiting." A second set of small taps joined the first. Then a third. Then a fourth. Tiny hands. More than one. All tapping along the side of my house. All whispering in overlapping, breathy unison. "You left us outside." And somewhere deep inside me, deeper than memory, deeper than reason, a single, horrifying thought bloomed. What if I had? The tapping grew steadier, spreading across the siding like raindrops that chose where to fall. My breath hitched at each tiny impact. They weren't heavy enough to belong to adults. They weren't sharp enough to be animals. These were fingertips, small, deliberate, curious, and far too many. The porch voice writhed in the cold, its whisper breaking into ragged fragments. Don't answer them, Alice. Please, please don't. The ditch creature slunk deeper into the mud, its shape trembling as if the smaller whispers made it recoil. The tall creature behind the house let out a low rumble that shook the corner boards. None of them liked these new voices, which meant whatever was tapping wasn't part of them. A fresh spike of dread stabbed through me. How many are there? I whispered. Soft giggles, quiet, breathy, not playful, drifted around the corner. 3? 4? More? They whispered my name like they'd been practicing it for years. Alice. Alice, you forgot us. My legs locked. The road beneath me tilted. I didn't forget anyone. I don't know any of you, I said, voice cracking. You promised to come back, one whispered, the softness edged with accusation. Another followed, voice trembling. You said you'd keep us warm. That word again. My stomach twisted. The porch voice hissed, Stop listening. I didn't promise anything, I snapped. The small voice closest to the corner whispered, suddenly very close, You did. A second voice chimed in. You left us in the dark. A third. We waited. A fourth. We froze. That last word punched into my ribs. The frost on the porch. The cold ore. The voice that had begged for warmth every night for months. My flashlight wavered as my hand trembled. I suddenly understood something horrible. The cold wasn't just atmosphere. It was memory. You died outside, I whispered before I could stop myself. The porch voice sucked in a broken breath. The tapping halted all at once, as if the children froze mid-motion. Then the first small voice whispered, Yes. The porch voice choked out, Alice, don't. But another child whispered over it, sharper. You left us. I didn't, I whispered shakily. I've never left anyone outside. I've never. Not here, a child interrupted. Somewhere else. The tall creature growled, its body shifting as if pacing. The ditch creature clicked wildly, retreating toward the culvert. They hated this. They feared this. Which meant these small voices came from something older. Something outside their instinct. My flashlight beam drifted toward the corner. My heart punched into my throat. A small shadow peeked around the siding. Just a silhouette. But small. Head tilted. One hand pressed to the wood. Fingers too long for a child, too slender, curling around the edge of the wall. I jerked backwards so fast I slipped in the gravel. My tailbone hit hard, the impact jolting up my spine. The child's voice whispered eagerly, We found you. The porch voice snapped, Stay away from him. You forgot us first, the child whispered back, cold and satisfied. Then the tapping resumed, hundreds of tiny touches pattering along the siding. The sounds crept higher, spreading across the eaves, skittering like frost racing up glass. The children moved like water, a spreading ripple of whispers and clicks and feather-light hands. Alice, come play. My breath hitched. No. You owe us. No. We're so cold. A heavier thud shook the siding, the tall creature slamming a hand into the boards as if to warn them off. Its breath roared through the dark, heavy and furious. The children only giggled. You can't stop us. The ditch creature thrashed in the mud, panicking, clicking like bones rattling in a box. The porch voice whispered urgently, Alice, listen to me, listen, listen. I pressed my palm to the road, forcing myself to stand despite my shaking legs. Why are you all here? I finally whispered. Why me? The children answered first, overlapping. You promised. You said you'd stay. You walked away. You left us outside. You left us in the cold. You forgot. Their anger wasn't loud. It was worse, soft, disappointed, betrayed. The kind of tone a child uses when a parent leaves and never comes back. My breath turned thin. I don't remember, I whispered. I don't remember anything like that. The porch voice responded, quieter than all of them. Because remembering would hurt you. My head jerked toward the porch. What does that mean? The cold deepened, swirling outward in a slow spiral. You made yourself forget. The children whispered in unison, you left us. The tall creature growled, low and warning. The ditch creature clicked a panicked rhythm. All of them surrounded me now, forming a ring of cold, rot, breath, tapping, clicks, whispers. My throat tightened until I could hardly speak. What did I do? The porch voice inhaled like it was about to confess something unbearable, but the children interrupted with a hiss. He let us freeze. He closed the door. He left us outside. You left me first, the porch voice whispered, breaking. The small silhouettes pressed closer to the corner. The tall creature stepped fully into the yard, breath rising in visible sheets. The ditch creature dragged itself onto the asphalt, mud smearing across the road, clicking with anticipation or fear. I couldn't tell. My vision swam. None of this made sense. Unless there was something about me I didn't remember. Something about a cold night. Something about a promise. Something about children left outside. Something about a death. You're lying, I whispered, but none of them denied it. The porch voice trembled. When you closed the door, you locked us out. My heartbeat slammed so hard the world tilted. The children's whispers rose around the siding in one sustained breath. And you left us there. For a long, cracking second, everything inside me stopped. Breathing, thinking, even the ability to tense my muscles. My mind refused to take the children's words and the porch voice's whispered confession and stitch them together. No matter how long the night stretched, no matter how unbearable the air became, no matter how close the creatures pressed, I could not let myself believe I'd ever done something like that. I forced out a strangled whisper. I never locked anyone out. I never left anyone to die. Silence followed, not from the creatures, but from the world. The wind held still. The humidity curved inward. Even the moonless dark seemed to lean closer, as though everything waited for how I'd react to the truth in their voices. Then the first child whispered again, soft and cold as a fingertip trailing across frost. You did, Ellis. You shut the door. The porch voice exhaled a trembling, hurt sound, half sob, half plea. You didn't mean to, but you did. I don't remember any of you, I said through clenched teeth. I don't remember anything like this. Why don't I remember? The tall creature's breath rumbled across the yard, a deep, shaking inhalation that made the branches bend slightly toward it. The ditch creature clicked its teeth like it was shivering. The children's tapping moved upward, gathering above the window frames. For the first time tonight, the porch voice sounded hesitant. You forgot because you wanted to be forgiven. The words hit like a fist. What? You wanted to move on, the porch voice whispered. But I didn't. We didn't. We remember. The children murmured together, almost gently this time. We remember the cold. We remember the door. We remember you leaving. No, I whispered, stumbling backward a step. The asphalt wobbled under my feet. No, this isn't real. I would never do that. A tiny handprint appeared on the siding. A perfect frost print. 5 fingers. Pressed right at the corner where the first child had whispered. My breath crystallized in my chest. I looked at the porch, and fresh frost bloomed over the boards as though reacting to the child's touch. All these creatures came from cold. All of them depended on me. All of them believed I abandoned them. "Tell me what happened," I whispered, even though I feared the answer more than the creatures closing in. The porch voice let out a long, rattling sob. "You left us outside, Alice, because you didn't want to hear us cry anymore." Something broke inside me, shock, anger, denial, all crashing into each other. "I've never—" "You did," the porch voice insisted. "You didn't want to hear the noise. You wanted silence. You closed the door. You locked it." Its voice cracked. "And the cold took us." My stomach dropped through the asphalt. No. No. If something like that happened, the police, the town, someone would have known. "You were a child too," the porch voice whispered, "and there was no one left to blame." My heart stopped cold. A faint, nauseating shift inside my chest tightened. Something old, something bitter, something like a door swinging open somewhere deep in my memory. A small voice whispered directly above me, from the roofline. "You forgot because remembering hurts." "I don't." My voice shrank. "What were you to me?" The children answered in unison, a soft ripple spreading along the entire wall. "We were yours." My legs nearly buckled. The tall creature moved forward, slower now, almost cautiously. The ditch creature thrashed again, clicking frantically. Even they seemed unsettled by what the children were saying. The porch voice whispered, trembling hard, "I was the last one." Cold washed over the yard in a slow expanding wave. "You let the others freeze first," it said. "But you watched me." A hollow ringing filled my head. "Watched you what?" "Take my last breath on the porch." I clutched my stomach and bent over, dry heaving, choking on air that had gone razor thin. My memories blurred, reaching for fragments that weren't there. Moments at the edge of childhood, a cold night, crying sounds I'd tried to shut out. A doorknob turning. A latch sliding. Silence. Something in me threatened to crack open like ice under weight. The children whispered, "You killed us." "Stop," I whispered. "You left us," the porch voice wept. "Stop." The tall creature let out a sound that wasn't a growl, more like a groan deep in its chest, unnerved. The ditch creature pulled itself backward all the way to the culvert, clicking madly. They didn't want to be near this. The children weren't done. "You closed the door on us. You kept the warmth. You let us freeze. You forgot us so you could grow up. And now you try to leave again." No, my knees hit the asphalt. The flashlight clattered from my hand and spun until the beam pointed at nothing. I couldn't. "It's true," the porch voice whispered, calm again, calm in a way that felt final. "You locked us out. You shut the world away. You let the cold take us." I pressed my palms to my ears. "I don't remember. I don't remember any of this." "That's the worst part," a child whispered against my back. A faint pressure touched my shoulder. "Cold. Cold." I jerked away with a gasp and fell sideways into the ditch grass. The tall creature snarled sharply, reacting to the movement. The ditch creature clicked and then froze stiff. The children giggled, that breathy, dead sound. "You can't run," they whispered. "Not again." The porch voice rose in a soft, trembling wail, not anger, not grief. Something deeper. Something hungry. "You have to finish what you started." The entire house groaned under sudden, shifting weight as every creature pressed closer. Surrounding me, boxing me in, trapping me in the middle of the road. "Come back inside," the porch voice whispered. "It's time to remember." And from the roofline, all the small voices whispered in perfect, chilling unison. "It's time to pay." For a long second I couldn't move, Not because anything held me, but because the truth of what they believed pressed down harder than any weight. The children's voices clung to me like humidity, whispering from the roofline, the siding, the ditch, the dark places where my flashlight had never reached. The cold that radiated from the porch had crept outward now, frosting the driveway in thin sheets. Every breath I took fogged the air with pale plumes that didn't belong in Louisiana. My house, my childhood house, loomed behind them all, dark and silent, like it had been waiting for this night. Waiting for me to remember. Waiting to swallow me back into something I had clawed my way out of without even knowing how. A small voice whispered from just behind my ear, "Come inside." I lurched away from the sound, scrambling onto my hands and knees in the middle of the road. The asphalt felt blessedly normal beneath me, warm, rough, real. But that thin line of normalcy stopped right where the shadows from the house began. The porch voice wept softly. "You can't stay out there forever." "I didn't hurt you," I whispered, barely finding my breath. "I didn't kill anyone. I didn't leave anyone outside." "Yes," the porch voice said. "You did." The children echoed, "You did." My head shook violently. If something like that happened, if children froze to death, someone would have known. There would have been news. A funeral. Police. A report. My chest tightened. I would remember. The porch voice's cold thickened, spreading along the fence and the mailbox, frost crawling like pale vines. "Memory doesn't change truth," it whispered. "Only how you survive it." The tall creature exhaled, stepping closer now. Its height swallowed the edge of the house. Its breath hit the ground in damp waves. The ditch creature clicked hysterically, dragging itself back and forth like it was preparing to either flee or lunge. The children whispered, "You promised we wouldn't be alone." A pressure bloomed in my temples, something like a migraine but deeper, pulling at the base of my skull. For a moment I tasted cold metal. My chest tightened with a strange, horrible familiarity. A door closing. A latch locking. Silence. "No," I whispered. "No, no, no, please." A small handprint pressed against the asphalt beside me. Frost bloomed beneath it. My breath broke apart. The porch voice whispered, soft and intimate, "We died shivering on your doorstep, Alice. We died wanting you to open the door." "I never." The children whispered over me in a rising, overlapping hum. "You heard us cry. You covered your ears. You shut us out. You let the cold take us. You left us." The tall creature stepped into the road. Its shadow stretched impossibly long, swallowing my own like ink overtaking water. The ditch creature hauled itself onto the asphalt, mud dripping from its limbs, clicking with frantic eagerness. The small voices moved around me on the wind, footsteps pattering across the invisible surfaces of the air, giggling, weeping, whispering my name like a lullaby for the dead. I backed further down the road, but every step felt heavier, like something in the air fought to drag me closer to the porch. The cold grew stronger. The children's tapping beat faster. The tall creature's breathing deepened, drawing me toward it like gravity. "You can't run anymore," the porch voice whispered. "We've waited too long." "I didn't kill you," I whispered hoarsely. "I didn't, please." "Then why did you forget us?" the smallest voice asked. My breath hitched so sharply it hurt. "Why did you forget your family?" The words slammed into me like the world cracked open. "My family." The porch voice trembled. "We were all you had." "You were ours," a child whispered. "You left us," another said. "And you grew up alone. And you forgot we ever lived." "No," tears blurred my vision. The road tilted under me. "No. Come back," the porch voice breathed. "Let us in." The tall creature moved closer, slow, deliberate, protective. not attacking, blocking the road, herding me toward the porch. Its breathing carried a strange sadness now, like it remembered something it didn't want to. The ditch creature clicked and shifted, positioning itself on the other side, cutting off escape. The children gathered along the siding, their frost prints marking the path to the threshold. The porch voice whispered, "We can be warm again." Everything tightened inside me. I didn't know if they were lying. I didn't know if they were telling the truth. I didn't know if these things were ghosts, memories, hallucinations, or some twisted echo of childhood trauma wearing the shape of the night. But I did know one thing. If I stepped onto that porch, I wasn't coming back. I forced breath into my lungs. My voice shook. "I can't go with you." A long pause followed. Then the air changed. Softly, fatally. The children stopped whispering. The tall creature stopped breathing. The ditch creature froze. And the porch voice went flat, cold as the frost blooming up the railing. "You're leaving us again." I stepped backward, pulse hammering, feet dragging like I was wading through snow. The porch voice whispered, "No sadness now, only need. We won't let you." A rush of cold shot toward me, so intense my skin felt flayed. The children surged from the siding in a wave of tapping, skittering sound. The tall creature lunged forward with impossible speed, its limbs bending like broken scaffolding. The ditch creature screeched, clicking violently as it dragged itself toward my legs. I turned and ran. Not thinking, not planning, just running. The night erupted behind me in a cacophony of breaths, taps, voices, scraping claws. Something cold clawed at my back. Something much larger thudded against the ground behind me. Something small wrapped icy fingers around my ankle and slipped off as I kicked forward. The road blurred. My vision tunneled. My lungs burned. I ran. I ran until the cold thinned, until the voices faded, until the night returned to normal. When I finally collapsed at the edge of town, gasping against the glowing street lamp of the old gas station, the world had returned to Louisiana warmth. No frost, no tapping, no towering shadow behind me. Just me, breathing, alive, alone. I never went back to that house. But sometimes, at exactly 2 a.m., I still hear crying outside whatever place I'm staying. So, rhythmic, waiting. And I know they'll catch up eventually, because they remember me, even if I don't remember them.